Oh, sure. Yeah. Why don't we do a quick introduction? So Lisa, let's start online. Lisa, you go first. If you just want to unmute and just share who you are real quick, and then we'll go down the line here.
My name is Lisa Neely, and I have a son with Down syndrome who will be 3 tomorrow.
Yeah, birthday boy. All right, Jen.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Strauss, and I have mosaic Down syndrome.
Thank you, Jen. Abby.
I am Abby. I'm Abby Newfer, and I also have Down syndrome.
I'm Dawn Newford, and I'm Abby's mom.
Marie Cepeda. I have a son who is 15 and a half with Down syndrome / something, and I'm working with Dr. Stanley on discovering what else is going on with him. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm Teresa Casmer, and this is my son.
Hi, I'm Ben Casmer.
And I'm Ben Stadwalter.
And I'm Ben's brother, also Walter.
The Casmer clan goes everywhere together. It's just fantastic. They just make a statement wherever they show up. So, okay, first question. So Lisa, I'm going to ask you quick. How did you find out that Theo has Down syndrome?
Yeah, so at our anatomy scan, there was an echogenic focus on his heart. So we went back for some additional scans, and they found another echogenic focus on his bowel, and his long bones were measured small. So we went in for ultrasound to recheck the long bone measurements. So a few weeks later, he was diagnosed with intrauterine growth restriction. So we had some blood tests done to determine the cause of that, and everything was ruled out other than tricycline. Basically, we were told that there was like a 70% chance between the blood work and the ultrasounds that he would have. We opted out of the amniocentesis and just decided to prepare for a diagnosis and wait for the official diagnosis until he was born. So then they tested his blood when he was born, and we received a phone call from the geneticist about 4 days later.
Thank you. Dawn, do you want to answer that question too?
Yep, I would be real short. So Abby is 18, and back then there was no pre-screens like there are today, or they were much different. We got it postnatally. It was delivered with not really much enthusiasm and kind of all like the base negative things that you could imagine given at that time. So I also represent the Down Syndrome Association of Wisconsin, and that's why we wanted to put in place the Parents First Call program in our state to make sure that parents had access to all the information right in the moments to follow their diagnosis, the opportunity to talk to a trained parent support mentor, and messages of congratulations and hope, because that was not the experience for a lot of people who got their diagnosis even as early as 18 years ago. Thanks.
Yeah, Marie, if you want to, Marie and Teresa, you both will have a chance too. Yeah.
Okay. We found out that Matthew was Down syndrome on delivery. I was an older mom, a high risk, 45 years old. What on earth am I doing? We decided not to have any diagnostics done because we were going to pretty much accept our baby under any circumstance. We had 4 boys prior. So we also said, well, if it's a girl, awesome surprise. If it's a boy, what's one more? So we found out when he was delivered.
With Ben, it was 25 years ago. So 20, anyways, I turned down all the diagnostic tests as well, because with an amnio, there's a greater chance of a miscarriage. It's 50% accurate. I said, we'll get what we get. So we just had him. And actually, when they handed him to me, I asked the doctor if he had Down syndrome, because he had winged, his neck was a little winged. I didn't look for the simian crease because I really didn't know that that was one, but that's what the doctor looked for. And he goes, well, I think so, but I don't want to tell you for sure until they did the testing. So it was, and you have to wait 3 days. It was 3 days later when they told us that Ben had Down syndrome, which we already knew.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this question is directed to the younger Walter. And the question is kind of what has something been in your experience as being a sibling of a brother, in this case, with Down syndrome?
Yeah, so Ben and I grew up in a small town, so everyone kind of knew us, which created a good environment for Ben because I felt comfortable with him doing anything in school or outside of school that someone would protect him, you know. People that I knew and even people we didn't know, like if I was worried that someone was going to bully Ben or you know, be mean to him, people would have his back. People came up that I didn't even know that would just have his back. So I felt comfortable. The real struggle came with him going out to like a bigger city like Madison, you know, like whether it be just like outside of school with friends. That's where Gigi's Playhouse came in. And that was awesome because the same group of people that we saw in our school, you know, a supportive group of people that are going to respect Ben, protect Ben, were there. So I never felt nervous about Ben post school because I didn't have my people to back him up. But now we do. We got Gigi. So.
Love it. Thank you. So Jen, this question's for you. What do you do? What do you like to do? What are some of your
Wow.
favorite activities?
I have so many favorite activities.
I know. Let's pick two.
Okay, one of my favorite activities that I love is my photography that I take and I share it to my friends on Facebook. And they're like, you take so many great pictures, especially the full moon pictures that I take with my wonderful camera. That's a Nikon. And I love everything with pictures. More scenic than people, but I do like people too. And my other favorite activity is researching. I'm doing some research on my genealogy. I'm doing just a little bit of everything. I like to be on the internet and just see what I can dig up with my ancestry, or if it's not the ancestry, it's something else that always captures my wild imagination.
That's awesome. And we know you love advocating too. So that is,
Oh,
we're very
totally.
thankful for that.
And
So
did you want to know?
Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to I wanted to say that I got my diagnosis when I was just about 7 weeks old. I'm 46, so it was March 7th of 77 when my parents got their diagnosis of me. And it has affected me in so many ways. And I watched Champions last night. Wow, amazing. Go ahead and watch it, but not recommended for the little kids though. But I just wanted to say that real quick. So now you know just a little bit about me, my age, and maybe at a later time I'll give you all my fun history.
Thank you, Jen.
Continue on.
Abby, what do you like to do?
Well, I like to go to Starbucks. I like going to the mall with my friends. I like taking my dog for a walk. I like to hang out with my boyfriend. And I have a job I enjoy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
All right, Ben, if you would like to share, we would love to hear about some experiences you've had with your friends, either in school or in work, and then we'll go kind of in reverse order. So Abby and Jen, you'll get that same question.
Did my friends hung out a lot with Taco Bell? Ooh.
Thank you, Ben. And so Abby, it's kind of what activities do you do with your friends?
I have tons of friends at school. at the Down Syndrome Association of Wisconsin. At work, we like to have sleepovers, go to the arcade, go to the mall, get Starbucks, go to the movies, to dinner, play games, color, and get many petties.
Love it.
All right.
That's
Jen.
mani petties.
Jen, you can share some of your kind of friendship experiences.
My friendship experiences stem back to when I was a young kid in South Florida, because that's where I grew up. And I was quick on making friends. Many people for many years did not even know that I had Down syndrome. So I got bullied more emotionally than physically, and some have taken advantage of me. So I kind of like, as an adult now, and I look back at the friends that I used to have, I question myself all the time. Wow, why was I ever friends with that person when they hurt me emotionally? But after my father passed and then my mom passed, I then moved to Wisconsin, and my sister assured me, oh, you'll be fine. You'll make friends quickly. I'm like, yeah, but it's not the same with my friends in South Florida. She says, well, broaden your horizons. You're usually good at that. I'm like, okay, why not? So I broadened my horizons. I moved to Wisconsin, first stayed with family, but once I got a place of my own up here in Montello, I was like, all right, I'm great at making friends. Let's go for it. And so I went on and I made some incredible friendships up here. It was me and two girlfriends of mine last night when we went to the movies. We called it Girls Night, which I love. And that's when we saw Champions last night. And I love my friends. I will bend my backwards for any of my friends. And I'm currently without a vehicle. So most of my friends who know about my situation know that I need to get picked up. And that's the true friends that are in heart, who always reach out for me and look after me, make sure that no one is not messing with Jen, because everyone knows that if you mess with Jen, you're going to get a little bit of backlash. But
Jen, thank you so much.
yeah, sorry, I could just go on.
I know you got a lot to say.
I'm a big time talker, so I'll let you continue. I'll zip it.
Marie, this question is directed for you, but if anyone else has experience, you're welcome. We are interested in hearing a little bit about your experience with an adaptive communication device, or AAC.
Correct. Yes. First of all, information has been my power friend. Definitely. In the beginning, Matthew being nonverbal was no big deal. I thought it was just part of his personality. My other 4 sons and my husband are very quiet type. I do all the talking around the house. I'm the queen bee. So initially I didn't think anything of it, that Matthew wasn't talking. And, you know, as mothers, we do the talking for them. We know what they want and they need. So it took a little while for me to realize that he is not saying any words. The other thing is that during his early childhood interventions, when social workers and therapists come home, no one really picked up anything. They just did his physical therapy. And one of the big components that was missing was speech therapy. We lived in Illinois at that time, and I guess they were short staffed, or where we lived, the speech therapist was booked, couldn't put us in. So not having speech therapy, again, I think that was a factor as to why I miss the reason why he wasn't talking. And I wrote notes because I can get emotional. I'm still learning a lot, and I don't want to go over and say things that, you know, pretty much are not relevant because I could get emotional. So pardon me, because I'm going to be reading my notes. he, right after his early years at home therapy at 3, by law, he's in school, which is good. He wasn't walking yet. He wasn't potty trained, so he still needed a lot of care. But at school, he was discouraged, or we were discouraged not to introduce, we're Spanish speaking family, not to speak Spanish to him because then he would be confused. The ALS was also not encouraged or introduced or told us to, this is what you could do for him. But I took the initiative to go ahead and learn on my own the ABCs, and basic, like I think everybody kind of knows in general, the more, the thank you and all that. And we do well with that, but that's as far as we went. He was in a very safe environment at school. It wasn't an inclusion. I know there's a question later on about that, but he was in a very safe environment with other special needs students only. So my goal for him was just to keep him healthy and safe. So everything was going peachy fine according to my agenda. He was given an AAC device at school, but to use at school only. And when they told us, well, I think he should have his own device, we said, okay, fine. What is it? Well, we'll send it with him a couple of times so you can look it over and see. Well, we were ignorant of how to use the device. So when he would come home, he would just be pushing nonverbal. He would just push the same button over and over. And we said, okay, this will be a great investment for him. It's $6,000. Our insurance won't cover it. My husband said, for him to just play in it, we'll just give him one of our old phones. So we didn't do that, and he kept using the same one, but it just at school. So then we finally moved to Wisconsin full time. We had bought a home that we were going to rehab and moved when our 4th child finished high school in Illinois. Well, Matthew had to come along, so that ruined that plan. So, but 2 years ago, we decided it's time to move on. So we moved, and the reason why we didn't move, it was because Matthew was already connected with something in Illinois. And I wasn't thinking of doing research and finding out what else is going on. I just didn't want to disturb whatever we had going on. So we finally decided, because the market was so good, to get rid of that house, move on full time to Wisconsin. That's what we did 2 years ago. We had known Gigi from the beginning in Hoffman Estate. I was driving him to Hoffman Estate to get him involved. But because something else was going on with him, which now we have dynamic dual, which we'll talk about that probably later, I didn't continue doing that commute because he was not engaged like the typical Down syndrome. They're just so awesome. My son didn't interact. It was always parallel play, and he was just being a corner. I didn't take the time anymore. So years went by, and then the Gigi's opened up in McChesney Park in Illinois, north of Rockford. We went to that, but the same issue came up where my son wasn't engaged, and I was working full time. Therefore, again, I stopped going. So then when we moved to Milton, that's where we are from, I connected myself to Gigi's at Madison. Of course, that's COVID, but awesome. Kelly was there, and she explained to me the whole system, how things were going. And of course, we were coming to at the end of COVID. So that summer of 21, we started going there, and my son was introduced to the Omnia, what's the next word? Grace. Yeah. Omnia Grace. And we were connected with Professor Eath, and she was awesome. And that was the first time. My son has an iPad from the school. It belongs to the school, but Milton School is much more supportive in the sense that it's his until he graduates 2026. So we kept it in the summer for. Pardon?
Amina Grace is the speech
Oh,
program.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Amina Grace is a speech program at Gigi's, but I was going to say he has his own device that the school lends him, and it's his until he graduates. So the nice thing about that is that during the summer he had it. And then at the speech program that summer, he was using it. And it was the first time that I was involved, and she started teaching me how to use it. And that made a world of a difference in my communication with Matthew, and also to realize that it was a valuable investment and device. Having said that, we started to hopefully budget because we knew there was a high cost. But we were then a mom at the dynamic duel that I participate also at Gigi's told me, no, Matthew should have everything he needs. You know, he needs this, and that. You should be connected with CLTS. All these acronyms started coming my way and I was overwhelmed. But nonetheless, I got him involved, and he has his Medicaid forward card. So now that program will be providing him with his own device. It's a long process. We started in November with one of the professors over at Amnia Grace in November, and I still don't have it, but it should be in the mail soon. So we're going to have that. My frustration has been that it's like a language. The AAC device, it's a language. It shouldn't just be given like it's a video game, and probably video games have instructions too, but it needs to be incorporated by everybody who's going to be around that individual that's using it. Matthew is getting so much better. My relationship with Matthew since we started our Omnia Grace speech therapy, and now one of the professors linked me with UW Speech and Hearing Clinic. Finally, it's making a world of a difference. My relationship with him is booming in the sense that he communicates with me more, not so much just staring at me, but he actually makes sounds, or he taps me when he wants something. I feel like he's more comfortable with me, and vice versa. And I'm not just second guessing anymore. And I admit I have to stop myself instead of second guessing him. I have to give him a chance. I have to be patient, much more patient, and give him his time to communicate his needs, his preferences, and also what he would like. I remember a question, I think it was with Professor Edith, that EITH said, well, what does he like to do? What's his favorite XYZ? I was stunned because I didn't know. I really didn't know. Again, my goal for him was to keep him safe and healthy. And I'm just overwhelmed by the support that's here in Madison. I might have to transfer my home over somewhere near Madison because it's a good hour commute, but it's worth it. And then I have to say, we met Dr. Stanley, gave us practically, I think it's almost 3 hours of her time to evaluate him. And then she started linking me to all the things that are going to help me know my Matthew much better. So there's a lot of frustrations when you're ignorant and you don't know. And sometimes it's our fault for not looking for it, but at the same time, it's awesome that there are a lot of people here that are saying that they will be teaching. Sometimes providers don't know it, and that's why they don't offer it. It's not their fault either. So information going out to providers, educators, it's so important because they will be the link for family members to do much better in their job and helping their child to transition, especially. I think I covered it. I didn't even reference it, but I think I covered it.
That leads us really well, actually, to a question for Don and Teresa. What is something that you would like to share with schools and teachers? I might broaden it a little bit to provider, healthcare or other providers as well.
Is it okay if I go first? Okay, great. I'm just going to wrap all mine up because I see like we're getting close on time. So I'm going to say like educators, parents, clinicians, all of the above have really high expectations and start early. Just as we heard with transition this morning with preventative for Alzheimer's Alzheimer's and dementia. I mean, from my perspective as a parent and one that represents a lot of parents, regardless of your type or journey, if you have really high expectations, continue to push, get all the resources that you can, just constantly throughout life, and think about transition early. And if you're a teacher and you don't know that the system in Wisconsin is really designed to put a lot of that on you, like the start of a lot of that comes on you, and it's supposed to start around 14 or earlier, just reach out. If you don't understand what that means, have high expectations, start talking to families about employment really early, start thinking about things that they might want to do. Where do they want to live? People can have and then behavior. So the thing I would say on behavior, and I'm just a parent too, is have very high behavioral expectations. So I expected Abby to behave like any person would be expected to behave in the community. And that meant I too was grounded for like 2 years at a time for a lot of her life, because I wasn't going to allow for things to be acceptable in public for her because she has Down syndrome when they wouldn't have been socially acceptable for somebody else. So that often meant I was standing in the corner with my little cutie who had Down syndrome, being the worst parent in the entire world. But at 18, right, some of those behaviors that we see with some friends, Abby doesn't, reach to as a crutch when she wants to evade or do attention seeking or things like that. So long story short, thanks for having us, and I'm glad to be here. Have super high expectations, start early, and think ability is what I would say. And then you were saying Teresa, who's I think online.
Teresa. Ben had excellent schooling in elementary and high school. Middle school was not good for him. The teacher wasn't engaged. She wasn't engaged with any of the kids in the class. I would send stuff for him to do. I want him to learn this, keep going with his ABCs, keep counting, but she wasn't doing that. And he knew sign language, the alphabet. So you could say, Ben, spell bake. And he wouldn't know how to spell it unless I did the signs for it. And then he could write it right down. And I had been telling the teacher this. I gave her books on. I said, this is what he knows. So you have to keep up on some of them that are not keeping up with what he already knows. Don't be afraid to stop in school. I was kind of a nuisance, but he wasn't learning. They were just sitting there letting him do whatever he wanted. So I would random stops and make sure that he was doing what he was supposed to be doing. So as far as, just don't be afraid to advocate for your child. Continuing learning is very important. He lost a lot of ground in middle school. Add anything?
I think for most educators, the most important thing that you should remember when dealing with, anyone, especially with Downs, is that they're an individual, they're a person. They know when you're condescending to them, or when they're, what are you telling me to do? Go get clean tables. Yeah. Go get lost. They don't want to deal with it, just like any other human being. Think of them that way. In our family, what we did is it was a total shock. We had no idea that our little Ben here was going to be such a treat. And we won the lottery. I mean, out of everything, we really did. So, I mean, we're probably the luckiest people in our lives, in everybody's life, because we have Ben. But no matter how much you know, you're always going to learn something from them. They will teach you. Just the other day, I was at Gigi's and just talking to somebody that I hadn't seen in like 2 or 3 months, a friend of yours from Fantastic Friends. And he came up to me and said, "How are you doing?" And I looked at him and I said, "I'm doing fine." "Wait, no, I'm not." I go, "I'm doing great. How are you?" Just rethinking what I was going to say to that person and talk to him as like, hey, I'm not just going to give you the colloquial, casual response. "Yeah, I'm fine." No, you got to interact and engage. That's what they want. ask them what they want. They know what they want. They will tell you if they can. If they can't, they're going to try to express it in some way. Every individual with Downs is someone unique and special individual. They're not all the same. Everybody on this panel will tell you that Ben's different from Abby down there, is different from everyone. They're going to learn at different paces and everything like that. Don't get upset. Don't get, okay, what's this? What I'm trying to say is that you have your schedule, they have their own. They can't, when they're asking the same question over and over again, it's not that they're just trying to be annoying, sometimes they are, but for the most part, they don't understand. So you've got to think about that and say, okay, I'm with this person. And like with Ben, he's a 6 to 8 year old reading and so on and so forth. Maturity level. I might sit there for 15 minutes when I'm busy as all hell, but I'll take the time to sit there and listen to him. Yeah, he keeps asking the same question over and over again. Yeah, it does get real tedious, a little mind blown. But obviously, he didn't get an answer that he understood. That's what you got to look at. What didn't I say or what didn't I express that he doesn't understand this? That's been the hardest thing. I used to be such a fast, I could go and get everything done. But when we had Ben, my life went from, Mach 1 to 5 miles an hour. And it was okay. The first few years were hard. But getting to understand our son and your brother, is probably the one thing that you should take away from this and get to know the person themselves. And don't think that everyone is the same, because they're not. Yeah.
Thank you. So Teresa, do we still have a few minutes? I know some other. We're running a little late. Okay. We still have some time. Okay, good. So Lisa, this question's for you. I know you've got a little guy, but what has your experience been with inclusion so far?
Yeah, so Theo has been home with me, so we haven't had opportunities through school or daycare yet. But so far our experiences through the community, like library and children's museum, and then with his cousins have been really positive. The other kids he's been around don't expect less of him or really seem to think of him differently. And that's kind of the approach that we try to take with him too. And Theo does a really good job adapting and keeping up with them. And just fitting right in with his peers.
It's awesome. And how about you, Abby? What has your experience with inclusion been?
My school did a great job until about middle school. Then it seemed like the general ed classes were too much too fast, and the special ed classes were way too easy. And that was my school's only options.
Thank you.
All right. Do you want to give us do you want to do 2 more questions, kind of time frame? I'll go with the next one.
We
though.
got it. Shake of that.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. All right. Given the nature of today's educational component, the next question is directed to our parents, but also could be to our self-advocates. What are your experiences or concerns about transitioning to adulthood? We'll start with Don.
Great. Yep. So Abby's just in her transition right now. She's a senior in high school. She's 17 and a half. She's a perfect example of how our system breaks down right now. So at 17 and a half, you're just thrown in exorbitant amount of information, just like when you had your baby and said, here, read this, and you're 5 years late. Sorry. So it's very stressful process. It includes a lot of information from a lot of different interagencies. So you saw one question, Social Security, what's an ADRC? I never even had CLTS. So how am I supposed to get tapped into the adult long-term care system? So it's all information overload, all at in a time that you're trying to even like kind of make important decisions. And so our transition experience, I would say, has been, and I have a lot of access to information. And so I think of families that don't have that access and what the transition can feel like for them, or if they haven't been talked about expectations since the time when they were born. So I'd say it's still frustrating. The interagency partners are still very siloed. There's been about a decade, though, of conscientious effort to try to break down those silos and get information to parents, the general public, employees a lot earlier. And so Down Syndrome Association of Wisconsin is going to be embarking on a major 3-year campaign called Thinkability Wisconsin, and that is largely around transition. So the transition from youth to adulthood, and taking everything that's already being done in our state and helping to get those amazing resources to families, to educators, and to employers a lot earlier, so that we can have high expectations, so we can see our friends in the most integrated setting possible for them, living their most thriving and successful lives. So I'd say our transition experience has been somewhat frustrating, but that's why we really look forward to helping move the needle forward for a lot of Wisconsin families. Thank you.
And Teresa, we'll have you share your experience, and Walter, if you'd like.
We actually had great people helping us in high school. My sister works for Civil Hop. It's a school with kids with disabilities. And so she said, start working on all this. So that was handed to me. I found the hardest, and this can make me cry, was guardianship. He's supposed to be going to college. He's supposed to. So now I'm his guardian still. Sorry. That was the hardest part of transition for me. That's all.
Yeah, definitely that. It's always a loved one's concern. So is mine. So I'll have to stick to my script. Let's see if it's true this time. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Christian and Dr. Hartley. I really enjoyed your presentations. It opened my eyes as to why I need to be more involved. So much more involved. We started to understand what we need to put in place when I said we moved here. I'm just so behind the 8 ball, but it's never too late. I appreciate you guys saying it's never too late. We were connected with our case manager through the CLTS program, and she's been amazing. I didn't even know what a weight blanket was, and it has helped my son tremendously. He doesn't wear down our sheets, and so many other things. But currently, I am participating in partners in policy making for people with disability. We'll be graduating in May. And that has opened my eyes also that it's so important to be involved so that we can keep programs going that are going to be so helpful for everybody. Katie Beckett is my saint. Again, because finally my son was able to connect with the resources that we needed because our private insurance stinks. So that's the thing. So my husband and I, we just know that we need to open our eyes, our ears, listen to the professionals, and be involved with people that are in the same situation, share our emotions. My husband, to this moment, well, everything's fine. He's awesome. And kind of like Walter's dad, he's optimistic, but he's not as involved. I envy you. I envy you that at least your husband, he's not as involved, but he is seeing it, because I go back home and I share things that I hear from professionals. And he says, yeah, you're right. And we were getting old. We're in our 60s, for crying out loud. And I said, when are you going to get to know Matthew? No, you're right. You're right. Well, that's as far as he's gone. But anyways, what was the question on this one? Oh, the transition. My mind is like blown off the waters because when I was told he can have a job, and right now we're waiting for him to start his shadowing, I think it's called, at being a vegetarian is hard to remember. Texas Roundhouse, no, Texas, yeah, that one. I'm just waiting, but it's like my son, he doesn't talk, he doesn't do this, but my goodness, God give me the graces to please listen to him more. He looks and listens and does things. I put what he's going to be doing, he's going to be rolling utensils on a napkin or something. So I said, well, I'm going to get ahead of the game here. So I put the utensils and he's acting like a teenager and I'm so excited that he is. I put the utensils on the counter and says, oh, Matthew, put them in there. Well, his little thing, and he always handles the ball. That's the thing. He always has to have a ball. He wouldn't listen. So I ignored him, let him go. He came and he grabbed them and he dumped them on the drawer. I said, oh no, Matthew, they go in different places. And I waited and I waited and I prayed for patience. And sure enough, he came around and he put them in the actual spot where they belong. Even the teaspoon and the tablespoon, he could distinguish the size. So for crying out loud, this kid is so smart. I'm looking forward to a transition. It's still a new concept to me, but through partners in policymaking, I have met a lot of self-advocates and they just blow my mind of what potentials they have. It's just amazing. There's such a role model for me that yes, they can do it. They have human potential like all of us.
Thank you. So we've got one more question for Lisa, Teresa, and Abby, and then Abby, we're going to let you answer the very last question, okay? So this first question, Lisa, we'll start with you, is what is one thing you would like to share with others about people with Down syndrome?
Yeah, so I think that's a really big question. I think my one thing would be that there's not one thing that applies to everyone with Down syndrome other than the fact that they share that extra chromosome. Everyone with either might, and I think it's important to get to know and celebrate everyone's individuality.
Thank you. Teresa, what do you think?
Well, I wouldn't change Ben for the world, but I would change the world for Ben.
Abby.
We are smart. We can learn and do great things. We can have good jobs, be independent. Just teach us. Expect a lot from us.
All right, Abby, this last one's for you. What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be an actress. I want to be a barista. I want to be a bodybuilder so I could be the first actress with Down syndrome on the Avengers.
Love it. Okay, that is wrapping up our panel. So I'm not sure what we need from our friends at Wiseman to. Teresa's crying. Teresa's crying. It's the name, I guess.
Thank you so much for the events of some of the but just another thing our partners we've been doing today that was